Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Unleashed Performance Therapy Podcast. I'm here with my co host, Robert McNair. Our guest on the show today is a professor over at the University of St. Augustine in Austin, Texas, Dr. F. Scott Feil, also known as the Professor of Profit. Dr. Feil, how's it going this evening?
It's going great, fellas. I am excited to be here. Thanks for having me. We got a lot to cover, so let's get into it, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks. We really appreciate you taking the time. I know we kind of talked off camera a minute ago. You've just gotten back from the APTA PPS conference. So let's dive into that. How did that go? Tell us about your experience over this last weekend.
Yeah, so the APTA's private practice section has an annual meeting, right? An annual conference, and it's basically a get together of a bunch of private practice owners and businesses and sponsors that are all looking to try to help move the profession forward in the realm of private practice, right? And I've been involved with the private practice section now for about 5 years. I've been an APTA member for about 17, 18. I'm coming up on 20 pretty soon here. And I have my issues with the APTA, but I pay my dues because it's the right thing to do. They're the only one really going to bat for us. So the one section that I really resonated with was the private practice section because I feel like they move at a faster speed. You know, business owners and entrepreneurs just think a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they're really going to be the problem solvers and the people that are going to solve a lot of the healthcare issues that are out there. So, I joined the private practice section about 5 years ago. Since then, I've been on their education committee for a couple of years. I've run for a couple of positions. I ran for the director position this most recent conference. Was unsuccessful in that one. I did not win, but I learned a ton about the election process and just, campaigning. And it was such a great experience. I got to meet so many private practice owners, so many cool people doing epic things that it really had me inspired. And I left the conference feeling even better than when I went into it, which was, pretty amazing because I'm running for a position here on the board of directors. And it's like, I'm just so amped up. I can't wait to go. And then I lose the election. And yet I'm still leaving with a very positive outlook, just so inspired. So, yeah, it was just a really great experience. And like I said, I got to meet a lot of really inspiring people. There is hope, I think, in the profession. I think not all is doomed. We're not, the sky's not falling. Things are going to be okay. We just have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything's a learning experience, of course, right? And you said you came away learning a whole bunch. Let's kind of talk more about that. With like you said, this private practice sector is kind of they're ahead of the game. They're trying to jump forward before everybody else does. They're trying to get onto the next thing. So, what kind of things did you see over the weekend that are new with their private practice?
Yeah, I think it's not so much new in that, it's still the same issues we're dealing with across the board, right? It's decreased reimbursement. It's difficulty in firing or finding new hires, right? Especially out of the pool of new grads, because a lot of new grads are coming out with $150,000, $200,000 worth of student loan debt, and they're looking to make six figures right out of the gate. And private practice owners are like, well, I can't pay you that unless we do the math, and it looks like 30 patients a day. Do you want to do that? And they're like, well, no, I don't really want to do that, right?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a disconnect there with hiring and maintaining and retaining good help. And then I think, the other big one too is just the admin burden that we get put under with all the paperwork and the billing and the coding and all this stuff that you don't even think about when you're a PT, a staff PT, or even a student, right? Then you get out in the real world, and if you start your own practice, you're everything, right? You're the front desk, you're the towel guy, you're cleaning the tables, you're treating the patients, you're booking people, you're billing people, you're doing all the things. And it's a lot, it's a lot. And so I think the good thing that kind of came from it was a lot of open discussion and a lot of problem solving and thoughts and ideas from a lot of these thought leaders out there that are like, hey, what we're doing is not working. How can we fix it? How can we address it? Right. And so the cool thing is I think we're starting to get out of the linear thinking pattern where it's like, 4 + 4 = 8. Okay, yeah, that's how we were taught to think. Instead of thinking 8 is the solution, how many different ways can we get to that solution? And what's the best
Mm-hmm.
way for us right now in this moment? And that to me was the really inspiring thing, was hearing different people's thoughts and opinions on how to solve some of these problems. Because it's multifactorial and it's crushing for healthcare, right? It's specifically PT world. But if we don't start doing something about it and changing things drastically, like we're heading for a rough landing.
What kind of solutions were presented over the weekend? Because I know as students, we don't really get to see a lot of that, come into fruition. We're busy in school, and so we hear a lot of this about cutting reimbursement, but we're not really living it. So we don't really have the opportunity to try to discuss or have any real world experience with those solutions.
Well, good news. It's never too early to start. So you can get involved and hear about this stuff as early as you want, right? Advocacy, right? That's a big one. We have to
Uh huh.
join advocacy groups, right? We got to go up to the Capitol and shake hands and kiss babies, right? Not my thing, but it's become my thing because, Texas is one of the most
Got to
limited
do
drug
it.
states in the nation. Yeah. So we gotta step up. I got to walk the walk and talk the talk, right? But I think, some of the solutions that in my mind were pretty cool and innovative were like, all right, one, we need education across the students and new grads, the professors, and the private practice owners. We all need to be educated on how people are getting paid and reimbursed, what actual salaries look like, the difference between your salary and like compensation packages, which include benefits and 401ks and all of that stuff, right? CEUs and annual dues, all this stuff, right? And then on top of that, we need to not be afraid to open our own practices, right? Like, hey, like you can do that right out of school if you want to, right? A lot of professors will say, oh, no, you shouldn't do that. You should practice for a few years, get your feet wet, learn business, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you can, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you truly want to open your own practice right out of the gate, you can. There's nothing stopping you. And I think Kairos do a pretty good job of educating people on how to start their own practice. And I think PT probably needs to do a little bit better job of that. But also, we need to kind of make people aware of student loans and what that looks like and financial literacy before PT school even starts. And so I think we've done some of that stuff, or a couple of universities are trying to do it. There's some studies now that are being done on financial literacy and just business acumen in general. But even if you don't open your own practice, you need to be aware of the business side of healthcare because it is just that, it's a business. So you need to know how to negotiate salaries. You need to know how to look for red flags when people are offering you jobs and all these things. You need to know how we get reimbursed in different settings and different pay options. So again, just making yourself more aware of all the possibilities that are out there and how the real world works. That's the business acumen we need to start generating, and then from there, the drum that I've been beating for years is patient care isn't the end all be all. We should be doing other non-patient care related things that can amount to much higher dollar amounts. We can be valued a whole lot more and really leverage the DPT into what it was kind of meant for. And that's using our knowledge and our brain and our skill set to do other things aside from just patient care, right? Patient care can be the foundation and the starting point. It's what we know and what we're good at, but it shouldn't just be clock in, clock out, 9 to 5 therapist all day, every day. Like that's not going to solve the bigger problem, I don't think. So, those are some of my big takeaways, and glad that I was on the same page with some of them.
I think definitely the nowadays the marker is 2020 COVID year, and I think definitely when COVID hit, that opened a lot of people's eyes. It kind of even pushed some people off the cliff. Hey, you need to kind of jump into this because you're not really making ends meet here under these other people, so you kind of got to go your own route. And you just mentioned that it's possible. It's definitely possible for new grads to go ahead and start their own business and their own practice. What do you think the main thing, the very first thing coming out of school? What is that main hurdle you got to get over to start your own practice?
Well, not even just out of school, but for all business owners in general, it's usually just self doubt and imposter syndrome. It's self imposed barriers. You got to get over those and like realize that if you've gotten through a DPT program, you've accomplished more than like 94% of the nation. So you know way more than the average Joe, right? You need to take that skill set and that knowledge and apply it and give back to the community and to the world, right? You have a gift. You've been fortunate enough to finish that cross that finish line and get that gift to now treat and give back to people and do things with that gift, right? But graduating and getting your PT license to me is just the bus ticket to get on the bus to start your journey, right? That you have so much more in store for you. Find that thing, find that passion, find what you love, and then pursue the hell out of it and don't stop until you get there, right? So, the self-belief, the self-doubt, the self-limiting, oh, I don't know how to do this, I don't know where I would even start, I don't know how to begin, I don't know how to start a business, there's all these rules and regulations and things, I don't know if I could do it, right? The imposter syndrome, like, it baffles me that's even a thing, especially amongst people with doctoral degrees, right? Like, that's insane. But it's not uncommon to feel a little uneasy and uncomfortable when you start anything new, so that's fine. But just expect there's going to be bumps along the way. There's going to be barriers to overcome and problems to solve. But as long as you come into it with that mindset, then imposter syndrome shouldn't be a thing. You can do hard things. Like, if you got through a DPT program, you can do hard things. So, it's just eliminating those self-limiting beliefs and a lot of the beliefs around money as well. That's a deeper dive. We were all raised with different beliefs in money. Sometimes your family didn't talk about it at all. Sometimes your family didn't have money. Sometimes they did, and you didn't even realize that you were privileged, right? It's different for everybody. But there's a lot of like subconscious beliefs that we have to get over with regards to money, and really view money as what it's meant for. And that's a tool, right, for exchanging and really leveraging into other things, right? So those are the biggest, hurdles I think you have to overcome. The first few steps you need to take in order to be ready to then jump right in and start a business.
I love your take on that. I really did love the take on that, because it's kind of like when you talk to a patient about progress, your progress isn't linear. It's not going to just start from here. It's not going to be a straight line from here to here. There's going to be those peaks and valleys all the time, every time. And so I like that you used that reference. So anybody who's talked to me knows that I plan on opening my own practice, and that's kind of what my goal has always been for as long as I can remember. So let's say that someone just so happened to start a podcast called the Unleashed Performance Therapy Podcast, and they are starting to create this brand for themselves, and their plan is to try to open a practice straight out of school. What is the best advice you can give for me to do that, or the person who decided to do it?
Yeah, I mean, find mentorship, right? Find people that are doing exactly what you want to do and just learn from everything you can from them, right? Like, talk to them, pay them if need be, right? Like, I'm a big fan of paid
Uh-huh.
mentorship. It compresses the timeline, and you, like, in a residency, if you do residency, you get like 5 years worth of knowledge and skills all compressed into like 1 year. Same thing with mentorship in business, right? Find the person doing what you already want to do and learn from them, because they'll help you avoid a lot of the rookie mistakes. They'll help get you going quicker and get you on the right path, doing the right things quicker. You're still going to make mistakes. You should expect to, because your journey is going to be a whole lot different than everybody else's. But for the most part, you can avoid some of the commonplace errors, right? You can get on the right,
Mm-hmm.
get on the right track, have guidance and somebody to go to and ask, like, hey, I got this thing, should I do that? It's like, no, you don't need to, skip that. Oh, okay, I was really thought that was important. It's like, no, not even a big deal. Like, just stay on the straight and narrow and do this, right? So, like, mentorship to me is one of the best ways to kind of get in line and get going quickly, if you're looking for something to kind of pour fuel on the fire and really get things going fast. But the other thing too, that I would recommend is like you said, is your brand, right? Like, nowadays, everything that you do is really your career brand. It's kind of, they've kind of merged your career and your brand have kind of merged, and they become what used to be your reputation, right? So your brand is kind of what people talk about when you're not there, right? Like, oh yeah, I worked with that guy, he's great, like, I would recommend him for anything, he's amazing. Oh, well, that's awesome. That means you've got a supporter, and your brand grew a little bit that day because word of mouth was shared, and you're doing something right, they support you, right? So I think every therapist at this point needs to really create their own brand within their career and then take it whatever direction they want to. But the more you can brand yourself as the expert and authority in the thing you love to do, the easier it's going to be to attract the right clients eventually, and grow and scale your business based around your zone of genius, or the thing you're really good at, right? Because that's just your brand. You want to be known as a guy or a gal that is an expert in the thing, right? So if you love working with quarterbacks, then be the quarterback PT, right? If you love working with cheerleaders, be the cheerleading PT. Like, you want to be known as the guy or the gal that does that thing, because the better you get at it and the more niche you get and the more expert authority you kind of establish, then you're starting to become that person that people seek out, instead of you having to go out and find new patients and new clients and whatever it may be. So, start the personal brand early. You don't have to be the expert and authority right off the bat, but document your journey along the way and just say, hey, this is what I love, this is what I'm passionate about. I'm on my journey to mastery of this thing. Follow along. Here's my brand, here's my company, and here's why I do what I do. And hope you enjoy the ride.
Absolutely.
Like Jamie saying, he's people that know him, he definitely wanted to open his own practice. On the other side with me, people that know me, people are always asking, "Oh, you're in PT school. Do you want to open your own thing?" It was I think it was me working with two separate therapists that own their own clinic, but they kind of started, it was already an established clinic, and they kind of started from the bottom. So I kind of saw behind the scenes, and I think that kind of deterred me from actually wanting to own my own thing, because it was so much. And I mean, they went separate strategies of how they were doing it. And there, of course, there's pros and cons for both, but it kind of not rubbed me the wrong way, but I was like kind of iffy on, like, okay, I want to do my own thing. And I was doing kind of a deep dive on you and listened to a podcast that you did with Roger Kelly, and you used the phrase quite a bit already since we've been talking, and that's leveraging your degree. And I think a lot of students, when they come out of a PT school, they kind of feel like they're either pigeonholed, or, of course, PT has this big umbrella, but they feel like they don't have much kind of wiggle room. What exactly did you mean by leveraging your degree?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, physical therapy has an identity crisis, right? There's several different avenues we can go, several different settings. People don't know exactly what we do. And that's kind of a detriment when it looks at the bigger picture of, like, the general public knowing about us, right? But it can be used as a benefit. And here's what I mean by that. Here's where I think that can actually play into our favor. Leveraging your degree means, like, if I went to school for a DPT and an EDD, right, and I come out with $140,000 worth of student loan debt, and I just go and I clock in and clock out as a PT, making $75,000 a year for the next 10 years, is that really doing all that I can do and leveraging it appropriately? Probably not, right? However, if I take the EDD and I start with my curriculum development expertise, helping other PTs create courses about their specialty, and I charge, I don't know, $5,000 to do that course creation with them and build it out with them, now I'm making, $5,000 per client. And if I have 10 clients, that's 50 grand extra in my pocket on top of the 9 to 5 clock in and clock out, right? So I'm a therapist, but I'm also leveraging the EDD in a totally different arena. And because I've got the EDD, I can now go into even consulting, because I can use my PT background to help people with ergonomics and proper desk setup, proper lifting, body mechanics, right? Team lifts, how to stay hydrated, how to eat right and exercise, right? So, like, workforce management and trying to keep a happy, healthy workforce. And I say, hey, look, if you want to lower your workman's comp costs, I can come in and do that for you. I can educate your whole workforce in 2 hours. Okay. I charge $1,500 an hour, and I know how to get that information to land because I've got an EDD as well. I've got my educational doctorate, so I know how to teach and I know how to deliver this stuff so that it sticks. Well, that sounds great. Sign me up. Awesome. I just made $1,500 an hour doing 2 hours worth of work. I walk out with $3,000, as opposed to seeing a patient one on one where maybe I treat them cash pay for $200 an hour, right? Great money for a PT, but if I can make 3,000 in 2 hours versus 400 in 2 hours, you got to start prioritizing where you're going to put your time and effort, right? But again, it's utilizing the skill sets that I learned through graduate school, through terminal degrees, all these things to leverage it into more than just, oh, hi, I'm a physical therapist, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with physical therapy. I love physical therapy. It's a great career, great profession. It's given me so many opportunities. But let's take another look at something that we should really be looking into, and that's population health, right? There was a physical therapist who worked for one of the granola bar companies. I don't know, Kind Bar or Cliff Bar, or one of the health food companies, right? And she pitched the idea of population health within the company. They opened up a gym inside the building. Every employee has to take a mandatory hour during their day to go work out in the gym. And then if anything comes up health wise, the PT evaluates and helps them with aches and pains and injuries and things, then passes them off to an ATC who runs them through their workout program till they're back on track. This is in-house population health, educating the workforce about happy, healthy living and how to stay active and how to lift and do all the right things. And then if something comes up, oh yeah, and by the way, I'm a PT, so I can treat that. And she's working as an employee for the company or a contractor for the company, making over six figures, right? And they're loving it because they've got a happier, healthier workforce, and they believe in keeping their employees happy and healthy. So the gym and the whole program was a great idea for them. It fit very well with their alignment. So again, it's just leveraging the knowledge we learned in PT school to then pitch it and package it to a bigger corporation and how it can affect them and help them out and help their bottom line, right? So now their employees are more engaged, they're missing less days at work, they're staying healthier, they're happier, right? And they get to work out on the clock for an hour, like pretty good gig, you know? And all it
I
is
would say
leverage.
so.
Yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal, right? We have those opportunities. We don't need permission to do those kinds of things. And that's what leveraging the degree is. That's how thinking top notch and really top of scope and top of practice will help get you to that point where you can actually leverage your knowledge and skill sets that you learned through grad school into something bigger and better and more impactful.
That's awesome. I didn't even know that was a thing. And it's
And
just
that's why we need
trying
to
to
talk
find
about
those things, like try to find those places where people need you,
it.
right? And
Exactly.
putting yourself in that position. And that's, I mean, that's an amazing to hear that there are things like that out there that we don't even realize
Yeah.
that we can
And if
get
it's
into.
not out there, create it. If you see a
Exactly.
need and you can fill a void in a need with your skills and knowledge, it's more important to people to say, I have this issue, I'm in this pain, I just need somebody to fix it. If you can raise your hand and be like, hey, I can be that guy, I can fill that void. Oh, and by the way, I'm a PT. They don't care about the letters after your name. They don't care what you do. They just want to know, can you solve my problem? And if we can
Hmm.
do that and start solving bigger problems, I mean, the world is our oyster at that point, you know?
Absolutely. And so is that kind of where you get into the side gigs? Yeah, you talk about as the professor of profit, you talk about side gigs and paying down debt. Is that kind of the same thing?
Yeah, it's definitely a part of it, right? So what I did was like, I wrote a book called PT Educator's Student Debt Eliminator, right? And it was just all of these little side gigs and side hustles I was learning along the way when I first started my business. My first ever business was a mobile PT practice, right? I drove around and I treated busy businessmen and businesswomen and CEOs and C-suite level execs who really I wasn't selling physical therapy as much as I was selling convenience, right? They loved the
Hmm.
fact that I would come to the office and treat them. I'd come to their gym and treat them. I'd come to their home and treat them. It saved them time and they loved that, right? So I was cash pay, out of pocket, out of network. But at some point I kind of maxed out with like my clientele and I had to like get more patients in the door. And I had to learn a bunch of skill sets that I didn't know how to do. I wasn't comfortable with, like marketing, right? Like Facebook
Mm.
ads, like Google ads, like all these things that I just didn't know. So I had to go out and learn those things, right? So I learned Facebook ads, right? And then I learned copywriting, right? Which I thought I was an English major if I just thought I could write. Well, turns out copywriting is a whole nother language, and I had to learn how to do that for the business, right? Then I had to learn how to put together like courses to show people how I started the mobile business, right? So like all these skill sets I learned along the way, you can then teach other people once you get pretty good and proficient at them, right? So I just started stacking all these skill sets, and each one individually could become a side gig or a side hustle. I had a buddy of mine who graduated PT school debt free because he learned how to do Facebook ads for local PT clinics to get more patients in the door. And he was charging $5,000 a month to run Facebook ads that would get them 30 to 50 leads a month. And they were loving it because a full plan of care runs about $1,800. So you get 2 new patients, 3 new patients, and you're covered. Everything else is gravy,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's profit. And so as an agency, I put that in air quotes, but he was a digital marketing agency for physical therapy clinics, three clinics a month, and he was making $5,000 each. That's $15,000 a month. And all of a sudden he graduates debt free because he had this side business doing, digital marketing while he was in school. So a brilliant way to handle it, right? I don't recommend it for everybody because, again, had it I went to school back in the dinosaur ages, right? When it was like a massive program still. So this stuff wasn't really around when I was back in there. But had it been, I wish I had known about stuff like this because I would have tried to probably work some sort of side gig. I worked at like a men's clothing and shoe store or something when I was in PT school. So that, wasn't the same. But like, we live in the greatest time ever right now, right? Like the opportunity is just immense. Like you can do anything. Businesses online are just thriving. There's so many opportunities. Pick 1 or 2 things you're really good at and lean into it, learn it well, and then teach it to others, and I think those are kind of the side gigs that make the most sense because a lot of these things you're going to have to know for business anyway. Right. And so it's just skill sets that you're stacking along the way. Because once you learn a skill set and you're pretty good at it, it doesn't go away. Right. It's just always there. And you just keep bringing it with you and bringing it with you and bringing it with you. Eventually, you just get really good at a lot of things. So it's figuring out the thing that is kind of the biggest lever or the biggest needle mover. What's going to make the most impact that I could charge the most for with the least amount of work? Right? Because I'm really good at it, or I just get it, or I love it, doing it, whatever it may be. So, these side gigs and side hustles, I really almost made the mistake of calling them that early on. Really, it's just a side business or a business. Any way you look at it, it's a business. So as long as you treat it as your business and not a hobby,
Mm-hmm.
then you're on the right path. But I think, I did it somewhat of an injustice and a disservice by calling them side gigs and side hustles early on, because they are a lot of work no matter what you do, and they're a business. Any way you look at it, it's a business. So, whether it makes $1,000 a year, or whether it makes 100,000 a year, it's still going to follow a lot of the same principles as any business would.
Like I said, the last couple of days I've been on a Scott Feil kick, so I was definitely listening to the Professor of Profit. I'm trying to be one of those pops, but there was one
Love it.
episode because I'm a big soccer player, and I think his name was Matthew Cloutier, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
At the end of that episode, you asked him if he had any tips for anyone trying to kind of get into that, and you kind of said it when we were speaking earlier. He said, find the problems kind of in that area, and then look to see if those problems exist around you, and then that's how you kind of go into it. And just random question with the businesses, the side businesses that you have done, which one did you feel was like the most effortless? Like that was just something that you could just do all day outside of PT or education.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, for me, it's probably books. I've got a series of books about ready to drop. As of right now, I've only released 2 books. The PT Educator Student Debt Eliminator, and I have a children's book about fantasy football. Right, but I've got a couple more children's books coming out about my kids and things that they've been interested in. And then a couple more books about podcasting for profits, copywriting versus writing copy, and then the path to mastery. That's kind of my series that I'm working on. And writing for me, again, has just always been second nature because I was an English major, right? My dad was an English teacher back in high school, and I just became good at English because he started me off reading and writing at an early age. And so writing has always been a passion. Blogging, copywriting. Like I said, copywriting was a little tough because I thought I could just do it, but I didn't realize it's a whole nother language. But once I got it, I really enjoyed it, and still to this day enjoy it. So anything with writing, books, blogging, copywriting, that was all pretty easy for me, just because I think of my English background. But I also enjoy it. Like I really do. I like it, and I like copywriting, which is like weird. That's not something a PT generally does. The other one that was really effortless is the podcasting. Like I was a radio DJ in college, and so I think the podcasting was just kind of a natural progression, and that I'm inquisitive. I like asking questions. It's weird being on this side of the mic instead of that one. I usually just ask the question and kick back, right? Because like people don't tune in to hear me; they want to hear the guests and the experts, But yeah, it's nice to have conversations with people and just pick their brains, and I ask the questions selfishly that I want to know, and hopefully it helps my audience out as well. But yeah, I think those two would be the easiest ones for me. And then it just so happens that they're lucrative if you do it right, and then you can profit off of them, right? So it's kind of nice that things I love doing and came easy to me were something that people pay for.
Nice, nice.
It's funny you said that about the podcasting, because I think that's one of the main reasons why I've enjoyed doing this for this past year, is that we've gotten to talk to a lot of amazing people and gotten a lot of information and just learned so much from just a bunch of people around the country. And it's been great. And you talked earlier about having a mentor, and I think we've got a really good handle on what we should do. And now I'm trying to figure out what not to do, right? Like, what are the things that I need to avoid when I try to get out there and start my business? That's kind of what I'm trying to pick out of these conversations. Like, what do I need to do differently? And that's a big thing.
Well, I mean, my biggest tip for anybody starting a business is, you've got to start niche down. You've got to really narrow down your avatar, your target audience, who you're really good at working with, who you love working with, the population you just would do it for free all day, every day if you could, right? Because when you start too broad and you just think, oh, I'm going to help everybody, it's like if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody, right? There's just too many. It's too wide of a net, right? And some people will argue that and say, oh, no, you got to get as many people as you can on your list and talk to everybody and you can fix everybody. And it's like, well, not exactly, right? Not everybody's your ideal client, and that's okay, right? Especially like me, right? Like cash pay, out of pocket, out of network, mobile PT, not everybody was my client, right? And if somebody came to me and was like, hey, I really want to use you, but I need to use my insurance, I would say, well, I appreciate that for sure, but I don't take insurance. I just don't deal with it. I don't want to, be, pigeonholed by insurance companies and having to, put down everything that I feel like is necessary just to have them come back and say, no, it's been denied. I just don't do insurance. But there's a guy down the road who I love. I'd love to send you to him. He takes insurance. And it's hard to give up patients like that sometimes. You just feel like, oh, but I could help that person, or oh, I need more patients in. I got to generate revenue, right? But the big thing is, like I said, like really focus in on your ideal avatar, your ideal client, because if you try to reach everybody, you're not going to grasp the people that you really like working with and that you want to work with and that you can help because of your expertise and your passion. And it just makes things a whole lot harder. Plus marketing becomes a whole lot more difficult too, because you've got so many segments, and it's like you're trying to post a broad statement of who you can help and how you can help them. And it's like, well, geriatric population is way different than pediatric populations. So how do I get that message out to both of those ends of the spectrum? Like, it just doesn't work. So I would say avoid the broad, I can help everybody, I'm going to save the world. Pick your niche, pick who you like working with, who you're really good at working with, the population you enjoy, and really hammer that in and get that going really well. And then you can kind of broaden out little by little and bring in some other, adjacent type populations and avatars. That's fine. But start with one and get really good at the one, and then try to grow and scale it from there. I think that would be, like I said, the biggest thing for me, and what to avoid would be, again, that broad, I can help everyone outlook,
Okay. Well, Dr. Phil, before I let you go, I wanted to see if you where people can find out more about what you got going on. I know you've got some books coming out in a new series, and finding out more about your services as the professor of profit.
Yeah, I mean, pteducator.com is the best place right now. That's the only real course that I have available and going. It's the Professors of Profit Masterclass. And all the socials are just at PT Educator. That's probably the best place to find me and follow what's been going on. Now that the private practice section conference is over and the election is over, I can dive back into some more of the Professors of Profit vlogcast and show, because we've been on a little bit of a hiatus, and now I get to dive back into it, and I'm excited because I've got a ton of good episodes coming up. We wrapped the 100th episode in season 2, and then season 3 kind of opens up to a broad business podcast, which I love because I've got some pretty big names on there coming up, and I'm excited for that because I've learned a ton from these people. So yeah, at PT Educator on all things, and I'm pretty accessible. I try to reach out on social as much as possible, but feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat. I love chatting business and talking shop. So hope to hear from some of your
Absolutely.
listeners.
Yeah, I can't wait to catch those podcast episodes, man.
Thanks. I appreciate it, man. Thank you guys for having me on.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for taking the time out of your night to talk with us, a couple of second year students.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for this episode of the Unleashed Performance Therapy Podcast. If you have anything you want us to talk about on the podcast, shoot us a DM on Instagram at unleashed.tx. And y'all, be sweet to me. Scroll down to the bottom, give us a 5-star review, share the podcast with your family and friends. And until next time, peace.
Go Mets.